Imagine standing at the crossroads of faith and misunderstanding, looking into the eyes of a creature known for its loyalty, intelligence, and unwavering devotion. Now, imagine that this creature, the dog, is the subject of immense debate among Muslims, often wrapped in layers of confusion, fear, and half-truths. Many people, even practicing Muslims, may shy away from dogs, sometimes with unease, sometimes with contempt, all while being unsure of the actual teachings of Islam on the matter. It's a topic whispered about in corners, often dominated by cultural beliefs rather than concrete religious knowledge. But beneath all this fog lies a clear, balanced, and profoundly compassionate perspective, one that, when revealed, can completely change how we see these animals. The reason this subject matters so deeply is because it doesn't just reflect how we treat one specific species. It reveals how we understand our own religion, how we balance purity with mercy, and how we interpret divine guidance in a world full of nuance. Dogs, in many cultures, are celebrated as heroes, family members, and saviors. But in some Muslim societies, they're often feared or avoided entirely. This contradiction raises a powerful question. Where does Islam truly stand? And more importantly, why has there been so much confusion? The truth is, our faith is not silent on this topic. It speaks clearly and beautifully through the verses of the Quran and the narrations of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. These sources don't offer a simplistic yes or no, but rather a multi-layered response that invites thought, compassion, and spiritual discipline. And perhaps that's the point. Islam isn't just about rules, but about balance, about holding purity in one hand and mercy in the other, about guarding both ritual cleanliness and emotional tenderness. In a world that is constantly swinging between extremes, this is huge. Understanding how dogs are viewed in Islam allows us to access something far greater, a faith that respects the realities of life while elevating the soul through empathy and discipline. That's why we begin this journey not with fear or suspicion, but with open hearts and minds, ready to uncover a truth that's been hidden in plain sight. And where better to begin than the Quran itself, the primary source of divine guidance in Islam. While many may assume that dogs are absent from this holy book, that assumption quickly dissolves when we enter the powerful narrative found in Surah Al-Kahf. Known as the people of the cave, this story is one of faith, resilience, and divine protection. It speaks of a group of young men who fled persecution for the sake of their belief in Allah. They took shelter in a cave, trusting entirely in God's mercy. But they were not alone. With them was a dog, a silent guardian who rested at the entrance of the cave, sharing in their seclusion and their miracle. The Quran describes this scene with a level of detail that is both poetic and purposeful. You would have thought them awake while they were asleep, and we turned them to the right and to the left, while their dog stretched his forelegs at the entrance. Surah Al-Kahf, 18:18. This is no mere background detail. The dog is mentioned multiple times in the passage, and his inclusion among these righteous youths is intentional. Why would Allah choose to highlight an animal, especially one later labeled by some as impure? The answer lies in the symbolic and spiritual significance of his presence. This dog was not excluded from the miracle, nor was it treated as a contaminant. It was part of the group, part of the blessing, protected under the same divine care that sheltered the believers. This isn't just a story about the endurance of faith, it's a message to every Muslim. Dogs are not inherently unworthy or impure. When aligned with righteousness, even a creature often misunderstood or rejected becomes a witness to divine mercy. In fact, many scholars point to this passage to argue that dogs, when in the service of good, can be part of a spiritually elevated experience. They can be noble, protective, and even chosen by Allah to accompany the righteous. What does that say about their place in our hearts, our homes, and our communities? As we move from the divine revelations of the Quran to the life and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, we uncover even more depth. The Hadith literature, collections of his sayings, actions, and approvals, offers a wide spectrum of insight into the role of dogs in Muslim life. Far from being cast aside, dogs appear throughout Hadiths in a variety of contexts, as hunters, guardians, protectors, and recipients of compassion. One of the clearest examples lies in the realm of hunting. The Prophet, peace be upon him, allowed Muslims to use trained dogs for catching game. In Sahih Bukhari, he said, "If a dog which is trained for hunting catches the game for you, you may eat it. This isn't just permission, it's a sign of trust in the animal's role. The dog is not considered a polluter of the food, but a trusted tool in lawful sustenance. Its participation in the hunt does not nullify the permissibility of the meat. In fact, its training is honored, its role respected. Likewise, dogs are recognized for their function in guarding." In another narration, the Prophet stated, "Whoever keeps a dog, except for hunting or herding livestock, his reward will be decreased by 2 chirats every day." This might seem like a warning, but it actually points to an important exception. Keeping dogs for legitimate reasons, such as herding or guarding property, is not only permissible, but exempt from penalty. The concern isn't the dog itself. It's the unnecessary keeping of dogs in ways that might interfere with cleanliness or religious duties. But when the need is valid, the reward remains intact. Islam, again, shows its commitment to balance and practicality. Then comes perhaps the most touching narration of all, the story of the prostitute from the children of Israel who encountered a thirsty dog near a well. She saw it panting, desperate for water. With no one else around, she took off her shoe, filled it with water, and quenched the dog's thirst. Because of this small act of compassion, Allah forgave her sins. Think about that. A woman who had lived a life many would judge harshly was granted forgiveness not through a grand gesture, but through kindness to a suffering animal. In that moment, the dog became a vessel of divine mercy, a key to salvation. This hadith not only elevates the dog, but redefines our understanding of piety. It teaches that compassion, even to a creature many might avoid, is more beloved to Allah than rigid piety devoid of mercy. The Prophet's teachings don't limit the value of animals to their function. They extend it to their existence. They are part of creation, and as such, they deserve our care, our mercy, and our respect. But what about purity? What about the oft-repeated concern that dogs are impure and should be kept away from places of prayer? This is where many misunderstandings begin and where clarity is most urgently needed. Islam places tremendous importance on ritual purity, particularly before performing acts of worship. But this does not mean the entire animal is impure or unworthy. It means we are called to be mindful and clean, not fearful and avoidant. The Prophet did say, "If a dog drinks from the utensil of any one of you, it must be washed 7 times." This hadith, recorded in Sahih Bukhari, has formed the basis for the ruling that a dog's saliva is najis, or impure. But it's crucial to recognize the scope of the ruling. It refers to saliva, not the fur, not the presence, not the dog as a being. This differentiation is key. It teaches us how to maintain purity without casting judgment or hatred toward the animal itself. Different schools of thought interpret this ruling with slight variation. The Maliki school, for instance, considers dogs as not impure in essence and only applies this purification ruling out of precaution or for utensils used in eating. The Hanafi school emphasizes practical cleanliness without attributing impurity to the dog's body. Across the board, scholars agree on one thing: The goal is cleanliness, not vilification. In fact, by allowing dogs in certain roles and even acknowledging their presence in Quranic stories, Islam reveals its deeper objective: to guide Muslims in a life of discipline, mindfulness, and compassion. It's not about exclusion, but about responsibility. You can benefit from a dog's service, share space with it, and even care for it deeply, as long as you maintain cleanliness for acts of worship. That's the beauty of Islam's guidance. It doesn't demand detachment from the world, but invites you to walk through it with awareness, grace, and mercy. And when we embrace that understanding, everything begins to make sense. Dogs are not forbidden. They are regulated. They are not impure beings. They are part of a divine system that calls us to balance our love for creation with our devotion to the Creator. When viewed through this lens, every hadith, every verse, every ruling becomes a stepping stone toward a richer, more compassionate faith. When you strip away all the scholarly debates and surface-level rulings, what remains at the core of Islam is a heartbeat, a pulse of compassion that flows through every verse, every command, every prophetic example. And nowhere is that compassion more powerfully felt than in the treatment of animals. Islam doesn't just allow kindness toward animals, it commands it. It elevates it to a moral imperative, something that reflects the very condition of a person's soul. And dogs, often caught in the tangle of cultural taboos and legalistic interpretations, are no exception to this rule of mercy. Imagine this: a woman reviled by society, known for her sins, walking along a barren road. She spots a dog, its tongue out, body weak, circling a well in desperate search of water. She has no container, no tool, but what she does have is empathy. She removes her shoe, ties it to her scarf, and lowers it into the well. The dog drinks, the woman walks away, and the heavens open up, not with wrath, but with mercy. Allah forgives all her sins, not for a lifetime of prayer, not for fasting, but for this one, quiet act of mercy to an animal most would ignore. What does that say about the place of dogs in our ethical universe? What does that say about the character Allah wants from His servants? This story, narrated in Sahih Bukhari, is more than a moment. It's a mirror. It reflects back to us the soul of our religion. The Prophet Muhammad didn't merely preach mercy. He practiced it, taught it, lived it. He reminded his followers that every act of kindness to a living being is a form of charity. Feeding a hungry animal, quenching the thirst of a dog, even removing harm from its path. All of these are spiritually rewarded. The animal does not need to be useful, domesticated, or beloved. Its mere existence is enough to merit our care. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, didn't stop at encouragement. He also warned against the opposite: cruelty, neglect, arrogance toward those unable to speak for themselves. In one chilling narration, also found in Sahih Bukhari, a woman is condemned to hell. Why? Because she imprisoned a cat. She didn't feed it, didn't let it roam to find food. The animal died a slow death of starvation, and for that, the punishment was eternal. What then should we think about those who beat dogs, torment them, or drive them away with contempt, just because they've heard somewhere that dogs are impure? The Prophet condemned unnecessary harm, whether it was to a cat, a bird, or a dog. He said that anyone who kills even a small bird without just cause will be questioned by Allah on the Day of Judgment. That is the weight of taking life in Islam. And if that is the gravity of harming a sparrow, what then of a loyal dog left to die in the streets? What of the working dog beaten for not obeying a command? What of the strays who are chased, poisoned, or burned, all in the name of some imagined religious purity? Islam's view on animals is not passive, it's active. The Prophet, peace be upon him, once entered a garden and saw a camel crying. Its eyes were full of tears. He went to it, stroked its head, and asked who its owner was. A man came forward. The Prophet said to him, "Do you not fear Allah regarding this animal He has placed in your care?" This is the true prophetic legacy. A legacy that doesn't separate worship from ethics, that doesn't see animals as below us, but as part of the trust we've been given. And dogs, with their loyalty and service, stand at a unique crossroads in this ethical landscape. In many parts of the Muslim world today, dogs are not only cared for, they are essential partners in the daily lives of families, workers, and entire communities. In rural areas, shepherds still rely on dogs to protect their flocks from predators. In urban centers, police forces deploy trained dogs to locate missing persons, detect explosives, or protect civilians during high-risk situations. These aren't hypotheticals. They are real, lived examples of how dogs contribute meaningfully to the safety and well-being of Muslims everywhere. In countries like Turkey, Indonesia, and parts of the Middle East, working dogs are not considered impure burdens. They are respected members of society. Their utility is not seen as contradicting Islamic values, but rather fulfilling them, because at its core, Islam is a religion of benefit. Anything that brings about good, prevents harm, or protects life is praised and encouraged. And if a dog can do that, if it can guide the blind, calm a child with autism, detect seizures before they happen, then that dog becomes a vessel of divine mercy. In these communities, we see the practical integration of Islamic law and modern reality. Dogs are kept for service, but precautions are taken to maintain cleanliness. Muslims who handle dogs wash before prayer, avoid contact with saliva, and keep separate spaces for worship. The idea is not to reject the animal, but to live responsibly alongside it. Just like one wouldn't wear muddy shoes into the masjid, one wouldn't allow a dog to interfere with purity rituals. It's not about fear, it's about mindfulness. And this mindfulness extends even to dogs kept as companions. Across the world, there's a growing number of Muslims who keep dogs as pets, not just for work or guarding, but for love. These Muslims understand the legal rulings, but also see the bigger picture. Cleanliness can be maintained, boundaries can be set, and affection does not have to be forbidden. They wash their homes, limit the dog's access to prayer spaces, and ensure they're always in a state of readiness for worship. They understand that Islam is a religion of balance, not restriction for the sake of restriction. This shift in perception is also helping to challenge long-held misconceptions. In many communities, cultural beliefs about dogs have overshadowed religious teachings. Stories have circulated for generations, claiming that angels won't enter a home with a dog. While there are hadiths mentioning this, they are often taken without context. Scholars have explained that these narrations refer to specific circumstances, such as dogs being kept inside unnecessarily or causing filth in spaces designated for prayer. They are not blanket condemnations, and more importantly, they are not excuses to mistreat or fear dogs. The deeper message is one of discipline, not disdain. Islam teaches that purity must be protected, but not at the cost of kindness. Rules about cleanliness are meant to guide us, not harden us. When understood properly, they help us live in harmony with Allah's creation, not in conflict with it. This is where the role of scholars becomes crucial. Scholars throughout Islamic history have engaged in detailed debates about the impurity of dogs, not to vilify them, but to better understand how to live responsibly around them. Imam Malik, the founder of the Maliki school of thought, did not consider dogs to be impure by default. His school holds that only the saliva is problematic, and even that is treated with caution, not paranoia. Imam Abu Hanifa of the Hanafi school offered similar reasoning. The emphasis is always on managing contact, not banning the animal. Unfortunately, these nuanced discussions are rarely shared with the public. What reaches the average Muslim is often a stripped-down version of the rulings. Dogs are najis, don't touch them. But this is a loss for the community, because when rulings are detached from wisdom, they become barriers instead of bridges. They foster fear instead of understanding, and they push people away from the very faith that was meant to uplift them. It is in this environment that misconceptions thrive. Many Muslims today genuinely believe that owning a dog is haram, that keeping one as a pet, even in a clean and controlled environment, is a sin. They may avoid dogs entirely, even when they're in need. They may deny their children the chance to experience the love and loyalty of a canine companion, all because of misinformed fear. But the truth is more compassionate, more flexible, and more beautiful than that. Islam never told us to hate dogs. It told us to be clean, to be careful, and to be kind. And when those three values are understood together, they create a path where dogs are not forbidden, but understood. Not feared, but respected. Not shunned, but embraced, as long as we walk that path with awareness and sincerity. This is the balanced view Islam offers, a view that respects the rituals of worship and the realities of life. A view that calls us to protect our prayer mats and our animals, our ablution and our empathy. A view that doesn't require us to choose between purity and compassion, but teaches us how to uphold both, side by side. Islam does not ask us to choose between piety and kindness. It calls us to embody both, to care for all of Allah's creation with dignity and wisdom. And when we truly understand that, our hearts open, our fears soften, our faith deepens. If this journey brought you clarity, comfort, or a new perspective, I invite you to share this message with others. Let's replace confusion with understanding. Let's build a faith community that honors both purity and compassion, because in doing so, we honor the very spirit of Islam. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content rooted in knowledge, heart, and faith. Until next time, may peace and mercy be upon you all.